Hi, I'm Aparna Lakkaraju. I'm a professor at UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco, in the Department of Ophthalmology. I grew up in India, and from a very young age, I had a strong interest in math and science. And my parents, I have to thank them for nurturing it because my mother was an economics graduate. But she was very curious about how the body worked and what happens in disease, and we would constantly talk about that. I remember that from grade school almost. And my father was also in finance and economics, but he established a pharmaceutical company and ran it for decades in India. So we were a very medicine and science focused family at home. But the interesting thing in my family was it's a very traditional South Indian family. And the men had brilliant careers, engineers, lawyers, doctors. My dad was a CEO. But the women were all supposed to be married off by the age 20. And I realized that in that situation, women have very little agency. But I also knew that my father really appreciated and valued education. So I went for my undergraduate. My undergraduate was in pharmaceutical sciences in India. And I applied to do my PhD here, mainly because I saw it as a way to be able to chart my own path. So I got a full scholarship to come here to do my PhD, and I told him, "Look, I'd like to go." And because he valued education and he appreciated my achievements, he said, "Okay." And that's how I came to graduate school. One of the things, if I look back on the trajectory of my career, is I've had these amazing mentors who supported me, helped me grow, but they also gave me a lot of freedom to explore my ideas. They never said, "Hey, don't do that," or "You can't do that." They said, "Oh, give it a shot and see what you get." My parents were really formative, and then I had some fantastic teachers in high school and college that kept the spark of science alive. And then when I came here, my PhD mentor, Jadi Raman, who passed away a few years ago, she was the first one to show me or inspire me with a love of cell biology. The fact that a cell has these tiny little factories that are all doing their own little functions, but they still need to work together for the cell to actually be healthy. And then my other PhD mentor, Jan Dubinsky, taught me about neuroscience and showed me, these really fragile cells that are so important, but once they're gone forever. And also taught me about the wonders of microscopy, how you can actually peer into living cells to see how these little compartments function and what goes wrong in disease. I think of myself as a translational retinal cell biologist. So the cell biology came from Dr. Raman. The retina part, the neuroscience part, was actually sparked by Dr. Dubinsky. So when it came time to look for a postdoc, it was interesting because I was in neuroscience and I contacted people. I used to go to the Society for Neuroscience meeting, got a bunch of offers, but none of them seemed right. And they were actually in my wheelhouse, right? Alzheimer's disease, stroke, Parkinson's. But then I just cold emailed Enrique Rodriguez Bulan, who worked on epithelial polarity. I was thinking, oh, a neuron is a polarized cell. And I was curious about how does it form? How does it know what the dendrite is and what the axon is? And I thought, okay, maybe if I go work with the Rodriguez Bulan lab, I can understand what makes a polarized cell. And he said, come meet me. And we had this amazing conversation. I knew nothing about the retinal pigment epithelium because in graduate school in neuroscience, you have one lesson on the visual system. And so I had never heard of the RPE. And so I just liked him. He was such a fantastic, warm person. And the funny story there was he offered me the postdoc at the end of that meeting. He knew nothing about me, right? He was so great. And, he's such a fantastic mentor. I think he was the one who really convinced me to go into academia when I was at the end of my postdoc. Before that, he let me do start my own project, and said, you need to go into academia because you will do well. So one of the things that he gave me was a lot of independence, both intellectually, scientifically, and he also involved me a lot in his grant writing. He actually asked me to write a lot of grants by myself, and they got funded. And one of the things that he said to me was that you can think, you can write, and you can communicate. So those three things are very important for being successful in academia. And I think the other reason was also that he saw that I was quite resilient, which I think is probably the single most important thing. When I first started off as an assistant professor, I seemed to have only women scientists in my lab. All the undergrads, grads, at all levels, I had only women, and it was great. And I loved it because I see that one of my duties or one of my responsibilities is to help instill self-confidence in the next generation of women, right? To help them feel like they're amazing scientists, or whatever they're doing, that they have the capacity to do it at a very high level. And again, this is probably my father. I have him to thank for it, because he told me at a very young age that if I believe in something, I should pursue it, no matter what anyone else was telling me. So it was very empowering to me, right? It was like, you don't need to ask anyone's permission for anything, or you don't need anyone's approval. You do what you think is right. And now that I look back with several decades in the rearview mirror, I see what a powerful piece that was, right? And so I feel like that is the one message I want to give the people in my group. If you have the courage of your convictions, then go with your instincts, and I'll support you. Looking back at my own career, I feel that there are some things that would have been much easier if I had had training or planning or something available to me, right? And now there are many more options available, especially in the Bay Area. And so I like to encourage everyone in my lab to do whatever professional development courses they need to take. But I think that that's a skill that all scientists need to develop. And some, of course, have resources around them, and some need to go find them. So I think science communication and anything else, like, coding or transcriptomics, so whatever it is that you feel that you need, because the resources are so fantastic these days. You can just sign up for an online course and teach yourself computation. So I would say grab them with both hands. I think the only other thing I want to say is, just resilience. I think we were talking about that, being resilient in science, being patient with yourself, because it's okay to mess up, and be patient with others, because I think that's the single biggest thing that differentiates an okay mentor from a great mentor. And then build your network. And the global mentorship program, and women's leadership development program, and Weaver, these are amazing. I found great friends in these programs, and you'll need them, I think, when things are not so great. And you come first. That's what I want to tell people. You come first. Always ask for what you deserve. Don't settle for less.